everybody. Pastor Randy, welcome back to Making It Simple. Great to be with you today. I want to ask you a question. Let's think about this for a minute. You go out to your garage this morning, or maybe just to your driveway, whichever way, wherever your car is at. You went outside, you go to get in, you get the key in your hand, you're ready to go. And the 10,000 or how many ever thousands of parts it takes to make that vehicle up are scattered all over the yard. Well, that would be a little concerning for multiple reasons. But that entity, that one object, that one item that is to function in that capacity as one item is no longer able to do that. Not only would that obviously be concerning and very distressing because of the need to use that, you would see it as overwhelming. You would see it as, how in the world could I ever make that work again? How does that apply? How does that tie to what we've been teaching here in this lesson, One Body? Well, sadly enough, it's quite applicable because, as I shared with you in the last two lessons, we've moved beyond, evolved, if you will, beyond the surface. We've moved beyond the cosmetics. This is no longer about differences, okay? Because we talked about that last week. When the first church came together, it said they set their differences aside. Again, making it clear they have some, okay? That's okay. We all do. You know, some like green, some like purple, some like yellow. None of that matters at the end of the day. If is the key word, if we have a concluded, combined, 100% unified effort that we believe in the person and the work of Christ. What does that mean? What was the mission? When Jesus ascended, the angels spoke to the men that were standing there and said, "Why do you stand here gazing? Why do you stand here just staring into the sky?" Well, what they were asking was, don't you remember what Jesus just said to you just a few minutes ago before he left? Go forth and tell everyone, all nations to the end of the world, about me. That's a little summarized, but that's the message. Go forth and tell. Go tell everybody. How do we do that? How do we do that if we can't agree on the message? We're not talking about Bible versions. We're not even talking about interpretations, because there can be different ways to view different words and what have you. I see that all the time. Different ones are trying to draw out this message from the Greek, and some from the Hebrew, and some from this and some from that. When our foundational principles are not the teachings of Christ, when our foundational principles are manufactured doctrines and traditions, we start down a trail that does not have a good ending. Because what happens is we find not just division and, well, they believe that and we believe this. We find the inability to work together. We find the inability to accomplish the Great Commission. Because if I'm telling you this, and that guy is telling you something completely different, and this guy says we're both wrong, what's left? Confusion. And in general, if it is mass confusion, what do the majority of people do? Walk away. I want nothing to do with that. I will avoid it at all cost because it's not worth the headache. This is the entire bottom line principle, the entire premise, the entire idea, the entire everything of why I wrote this study, The Beauty of Simple. Because over the last 20 some odd years, as I've been involved in ministry, the simplicity of the message has only grown in my heart. And my disdain but the complicated, argumentative nonsense has grown exponentially. Unbelievable. Because Jesus said, "Come unto me, come to me," not drive everybody away. And that's what we see oftentimes today. There are places that are doing phenomenal. Don't get me wrong. I am not here to point fingers at any one group or one pastor or one anything ever. However, in the midst of everywhere that is doing things right, you've got 100 more that aren't. We're not talking about teaching style. Teaching style, that's up for debate. All right, some scream and yell. Some are like watching paint dry, and some of us fall somewhere in the middle. Here's the thing. Jesus makes it clear in the book of Revelation, do not add to, do not take away from. We're speaking of the message, of the intent of the message. And that's where we have a problem today. That is why the body is not functioning well. The body is very unhealthy. You know, we know in our own physical body, if something is not working well, or if something is hurting, it bothers the rest of us. If you have a toothache, you don't feel good all over. You have a headache, you don't feel good all over. It hurts specifically in that one area, but the rest of you don't feel well either. It could be the same thing with a broken toe. It just aches and makes you whole. You don't feel. So when the one physical body, our literal human body, is not functioning well as a total unit, we can clearly compare, as Paul was writing in Corinthians, how that affects the body of Christ. That is not to say that in your given community you can't have 10 different churches, okay? Because of, again, cosmetics, worship styles. This one likes it quiet and reverent. This one likes it loud and over the top. But at the end of the day, if people are coming to know Christ, if people are getting saved, if people are surrendering their hearts to God, none of that matters. None of that matters. However, if in those 10 places, which is never 10, it's always in the county where I live, there's over 500. But the differentials are not the name on the door, are not which Bible you came in with, or which app on your phone you're using, or what style of dress you have. That's not the difference. The difference is the belief system. I mean, from the way you get saved, to baptism, to we find points of argument on everything. And when the body becomes divided, it is no longer whole. And when it is no longer whole, it no longer walks in unity. And the danger for that, and the problem for that in the community, in the people that we're attempting to reach, nothing gets done. Because there's too much time being given to arguments. There's too much time being given to nonsense and church squabbles. And as long as the fighting continues, souls are no longer the focus. Think about it. If you're playing a sport, baseball, football, doesn't matter, and your objective for your team is to win the World Series, win the Super Bowl, win the championship series, whatever the goal is. However, for the entire game, the pitcher's mad at the catcher because he missed one. The first baseman is mad with the shortstop because he missed one. And so they're bickering back and forth. You should have done this and you should have done that. Well, the Babe Ruth used to do it this way, and Joe Montana used to do it this way. And everybody, what happens? Not only do you not win that game at all, your function as a team has completely imploded. The church world is absolutely the same. Well, so-and-so said this, and Dr. So-and-so came up with that, and this, person from 400 years ago said that, and this person that started last week that's only drove by a church once in their life, boy, they've got a really good... Do you see the word I'm talking about? We can get into the comparison game, and I'm not saying that other people from the past don't know stuff, because absolutely history helps, but you better know where that history came from. And when we go back to understanding one body, as Christ called us to be, that absolutely does not mean that differences cannot exist, because they absolutely can. the mere cosmetics, the worship styles, whatever. None of those prevent the gospel from being preached. You may not agree with the method that someone uses. You may not agree with, again, the way a person dresses or whatever, because we can get into all the legalistic, silly arguments. But the problem is when that becomes the focus, then Christ and his redeeming work at Calvary is no longer the focus. And when that becomes off the picture, when that becomes off the camera, when that becomes off the subject matter, we get in trouble and we need help, because then we're no longer accomplishing the mission that we've been set forth to do, and that is to share the gospel. Friends, when Jesus said, "Go forth and tell people about me," he did not give the specifics of that. He didn't say, well, you can't wear a hat, or you can't wear tennis shoes, or you got to wear a three-piece suit, or you got to have a King James. He didn't say that. No, he said, go tell them about me. What does that require? That you know who he is. You cannot, Jesus said, follow me, and I'll close with this. You cannot follow who you do not know. And you do not know who you do not trust. That's the bottom line. And if we don't know him, we can't tell other people about him. That's got to be our focus, friends. That is how one body will come back to being one and functioning as one and accomplishing the mission that we've been given. That is telling people about Christ. Until we get that right, it's going to continue to be a scattered mess. God bless you, friends. Lord willing, I'll see you tomorrow with a little bit more of Making It Simple.